Every year, millions of Americans are exposed to a contagious virus.
It's not a disease.
But it's toxic.
It's not genetic.
But we're all at risk. You can contract it from a stranger or a friend.
You can catch it at the movies.
Or by listening to a song.
And if you spend even a minute on the internet,
You've definitely been exposed.
What is this virus? It's stigma.
Stigma.
It's stigma.
stigma may not directly affect you.
But it harms the 1 in 5 Americans living with mental health conditions.
Stigma promotes an environment of shame,
Fear and silence.
Which prevents millions of people from seeking help.
Stigma isn't just harmful. You also risk coming across as a real jerk.
But there's good news.
The National Alliance on Mental Illness believes stigma towards mental illness is 100% curable.
And it's pretty easy to find out if you have it.
So do yourself and everyone a favor.
Go to curestigma.org and get tested for stigma.
Yes, there's a virus spreading across America. It harms 1 in 5 Americans affected by the mental health condition. It shames them into silence. It prevents them from seeking help. And in some cases, it takes their lives. That virus is stigma. Stigma against people with mental health conditions. But as the video said, there's good news. Stigma is 100% curable. Compassion, empathy, and understanding are the antidote. And everyone here today can use their voice to spread the cure. Good evening, and thank you all for coming. Before I get started and introduce myself, I first want to acknowledge a few people. All of my fellow Soroptimists of Soroptimist International of Chico, thank you for helping me put this together. Also, the Virginia Jones Foundation, who helped make this event possible. To Trudy Duesenberg for her leadership and fantastic input into this project. And a special thank you to my best friend and #1 supporter, my husband, Doug. My name is Natalie Conrad, and I am the current president of Soroptimist International of Chico. And I have lived with a mental health condition for over 25 years. When I started as president last year at my installation, I told my story for the first time. I mean, the very first time. My children were there, and they were a bit shocked because, you know, as moms, we try to keep it all inside. It was a story of dark pain, of failed suicide, and a life lived behind a mask to hide my mental illness. It was and is my story. I am living with a diagnosis of depression, but I am in a place of recovery. I'm never finished, it's always ongoing, but I'm in a place of recovery. I heard a quote recently that sums up why I stand before you tonight. And it goes like this. You've got to make your mess a message so that others can survive this. It's so true. Tonight I ask you to help erase the stigma, because navigating life with a mental health condition can be tough, and the isolation, blame, and secrecy that is often encouraged by stigma creates huge challenges to reaching out, getting needed support, and living well. Please remember, mental illness is a biological brain disorder or a chemical imbalance. It's no one's fault, and it cannot be wished away. It is as much an illness as diabetes, and can be as debilitating as cancer. When someone is diagnosed with cancer, their tribe surrounds them and helps them during the surgeries, the chemos, and their recovery. When someone is diagnosed with a mental illness, they too need to be surrounded, supported, and helped by their tribe. They should not be treated differently and made to be ashamed of their diagnosis. It is not their fault. Now, there are many changes that need to be made in America's healthcare system. Many changes. But it all starts here. This is the first step. So it starts here with all of us by standing up and pledging to erase stigma. Next, I'm going to introduce our moderator for the evening. Florence has been a licensed marriage family therapist for 15 years. Her therapy focus is on grief counseling and clinical supervision of pre-licensed therapists. She currently is an adjunct faculty member at Sac State, teaching the next generation of mental health counselors. She also volunteers her time as co-coordinator of the Sacramento Valley chapter of the California Association of Marriage Family Therapists CARE Task Force, a group specifically focused on advocating for mental health resources for marginalized communities. Best of all, she is a former member of Soroptimist International of Chico and a former resident of Chico. Please help me welcome Florence.
Thank you for coming tonight. I think it's really important that we erase the stigma. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with clients and they could have gotten help earlier had they not had the barrier of stigma. So tonight we have our wonderful guest panelists here who are going to talk about their own experiences living with mental illness or with family members who are mentally ill to help us erase the stigma. First, we have Lisa Courier. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Lisa's experience began almost a decade ago when a family member she described as a kind, really smart, and all-around great kid began growing more isolated and argumentative. In time, her young child was diagnosed with schizophrenia. She has learned firsthand the challenges of identifying resources and how to survive those times of crises of family members and that experience. So Lisa will be talking about what it is to have a child with schizophrenia. Next we have Darcy Crossan. Darcy has struggled with and survived postpartum depression and anxiety not once, but with all three of her pregnancies. With husband James, who's somewhere in the room, I saw him earlier, there he is. Darcy and James manage the very popular Apple Blossom Baby, a store in Chico which offers new and quality resale items for children. Darcy continues to educate herself and others about postpartum depression. Next, we have Carl Butch Frederickson. He is a native of Butte County. After graduating from Paradise High School, he joined the Navy. He then completed 3 tours of duty in Vietnam. Butch currently is the president of the Vietnam Veterans of Butte County and serves on the board of directors for the California State Council of Vietnam Veterans of the North District. He has dedicated his life to helping veterans and to finding ways to help others as he himself has learned to live with PTSD. Next to him, we have Noah Hampton Asmus. I knew I was going to butcher it. No, I'm sorry. Noah's story starts with the year 2012 when he began receiving medical treatment for schizophrenia. 4 years later, though, he graduated with his Bachelor's of Arts in Social and Behavioral Science, so 4 years into his recovery of schizophrenia. He is continuing his academic pursuits into graduate school at Sacramento State in Public Policy and Administration Master's Program. And the goal is to fulfill policy for underserved communities as an advocate for the indivisible vanguards. Then we have Ms. Andrea Crook. Andrea holds a Bachelor's of Science in Organizational Behavior and Leadership from the University of San Francisco and is an advanced level wellness and recovery action plan facilitator. She serves on the Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission's Client and Family Leadership Committee. She's also worked with National Mental Health America to develop the first National Advanced Peer Specialist certification. Her personal and professional experience has encouraged her to advocate for clients' rights and advocate for those who are stigmatized and marginalized within our society. Her areas of focus include education, advocacy, and social inclusion. So we're going to go down the list and have each of our guest panelists speak for 5 minutes about their personal story, and hopefully, I know actually it will be inspiring. I'll start with Lisa.
Good evening. I'm so happy to see so many of you here. So my story actually began about 30 years ago when I had a partner who was diagnosed with severe mental illness. But the most recent was in the past 10 years. My son had a severe suicide attempt. He slit his throat and was in the hospital for over a year. We didn't know at the time that he was suffering any form of mental illness. I thought normal teenage argumentative male thing, I had no idea. After the fact that when he was in the hospital and they didn't think that he would ever speak or eat ever again. He had a trach tube and a feeding tube and was in the hospital for over a year. Finally, they got him stabilized on some medications, and his dad and I went every single day to visit him. And then the doctor said, I think you need to stay away for a few days because he does need therapy at some point, not mom sitting there all day. And that was for his own growth, right? Even though I went home and cried, I said, well, that's my baby and he's suffering, and he really did need to work this through on his own. And so he came, he moved from the Bay Area here with me, and they let him go out of the hospital in the Bay Area with no medication. And so they said, he's fine. And I thought, okay, well, he's fine. I hadn't done that much research on schizophrenia to know that he really wasn't fine. And 45 to 60 days after that, he attacked my mom in the middle of the night. Here's my baby attacking my mother. And where do you make your choice there? You call the police, you give him the help that he needs, or you try. So my baby then sat for 14 and a half months in Butte County Jail on suicide watch. That means there's no commissary, there's no underwear, there's no letters in, there's nothing but me and his father behind a glass 45 minutes twice a week for 14 and a half months. I fought, and they kind of call me a disruptor at times, and I think I kind of am. Because I believe that we need to revolutionize the way that we do social services, the way that we treat our people, the way that, it's not bad to have a mental illness. It's not bad to have schizophrenia. It's not bad to have any of that, because as a fellow human being, he's a loving, kind individual. We finally got him to the hospital, which was an act of Christ, and I thank God for that every single day. Spent 4.5 years there. But a year and 3.5 weeks ago, my baby came home. Cool. I'm very happy to say that he's on a medication regimen that works for him. But he has a wraparound effect, and exactly what Natalie was talking about. So I made it my crusade and my mission to become a mental health advocate in this community. For 2 years, I've run crisis care advocacy and triage. I work with Butte County NAMI, and what's most important is our families need to be educated. We need the NAMI classes. We need the NAMI support. We need to attend those monthly support meetings with NAMI. We need to understand what mental illness is and what we can do through the family to family. We need to support our folks and ask them to please go to the peer-to-peer. It gives massive support for people who are suffering on a daily basis and just don't know what to do. And quite frankly, the first time when I took the family-to-family class, I found an additional family of friends for me. So, and I needed that, right? Because so many of my family members have shoved my son aside, that his own sister and brother, one of them, don't speak. No one speaks of it, right? And here it is, that's my baby, and that hurts me, and I want to kind of sock him in the nose once in a while, right? So why not? What we need to do is understand that as individuals and human beings, we all deserve to live our lives, and happily, and with support. So we need to wrap around folks and help our folks get through so that they're no longer suffering, but they're in recovery and surviving. Because absolutely, with any form of mental illness, that can happen for your family members and for your loved ones, because it's happening for mine right now.
Sorry, I normally just talk to people one-on-one. So I got an email where I was billed actually as being the young mom with postpartum depression, which I really liked, because the last time I got pregnant, they billed me as advanced maternal age and wanted to send me for a whole lot of testing. So I'm going to go with that. But the reality is that I'm not a young mom. I'm 39. And since my husband always makes me skip a few months and admit to the real age, I'm going to be 40 before the fall comes. But I do have a young child, and she's 2. And when I got pregnant with her, I immediately got postpartum depression while pregnant, because 50% of women do, and I am really lucky, and when I win the lottery, I win big, and so I get that. And it was interesting this time around, in part because I created my own support network within my business, but also just because social change is starting to happen, where we're able to talk about it, versus back in the dinosaur era, a whole 13 years ago when I got pregnant, and the only person who had postpartum depression was some really famous blonde lady, and the only thing that was said about, I know I cared so much about her, I was pregnant, I was busy, but the only thing that was said was, oh, she's horrible, she got on medication, she never should have done that. And then the whole other encampment, oh, I can't believe she came out and said that, she must be crazy. And so even though I did have postpartum depression 13 years ago, first off, we weren't educated enough to know what it was, so I didn't even know I had it until I had my third and went, oh, it can feel this good? Because postpartum got me on the weaning end for her, because I'm just going to keep getting the lottery. So 13 years ago, the only thing anybody ever asked is, are you going to hurt your baby? And the one thing I'm definitely going to say, if you ever have somebody who's suffering, please don't ask them if they're going to hurt their baby. If they're talking to you about it, they're probably not. It's like 1 in 1,000. Let's instead ask them how they're doing. Let's see what they need. I have cheats here. Oh, the other one. There's a difference between baby blues and postpartum depression. I don't know one person 3 weeks after having a baby who isn't tired, cranky, and moody and thinks that babies are overrated. It's true. The problem is when you think that 6 months or a year or 2 years, and to say to somebody, oh, well, you had that baby a year ago, you must be feeling better. But that's when actual postpartum depression is happening. It's when normal life should have started resuming, but for some reason you just can't seem to get there. And I think when I'm looking out, I see a whole lot of people that can be a really good support network to a whole lot of people. But it's really hard because you're going to try to support network people who aren't talking about it, may not even recognize the signs themselves. And I get a lot of grandmas in the shop who are so in love. And they're sad sometimes. And they're sad because, you know, maybe their daughter's not coming over for Sunday breakfast anymore, or not calling her, or returning her calls, or going on shopping trips anymore, or taking time to play bunco. And there's some extent of I have a baby and I just can't seem to make time, but there's also I just don't like those things anymore. And with any type of mental illness, not that I'm an expert on any of it, but I would assume that if you're losing interest in the things you liked 6 months ago and it suddenly just drops off, that should be a sign that maybe that person needs you to reach out. Also, signs of postpartum depression, if you hear somebody say, oh, I'm a horrible mom and my kids would be better, you know, with a different mom, and had a horrible birth and I just can't get past that. Those are all signs that that woman hasn't made peace with her journey and that she's struggling beyond just I'm venting on Twitter to get attention. She's hurting. And those are signs that, you know, a longer phone conversation or dropping off a peanut butter and jelly sandwich could be helpful for her. A lot of times people say, well, if you just got more sleep, that you wouldn't have it. First off, you're not sleeping with children, but nobody is sleeping with children, and it's only affecting 1 in 5 women. And not only, like, that's a lot, but I'm just saying, those other 4 jerks are not getting any sleep, and they seem to be coping just fine. So obviously sleep isn't the only issue going on here. Not that a woman wouldn't love the crud out of you showing up to, like, take her baby for 2 hours so she could sleep, but that's not going to solve it. And in fact, the thing is, you can't solve it. It has to run its course. You have to self-care. You have to let the hormones ebb. You sometimes have to go into therapy or get a prescription or all 6 of those things all at once. But what you can do is help mitigate the pain while the woman is going through it. And so I did actually reach out on my business page today, and I said, okay, ladies, what was said to you that made the biggest difference in your life? And I got some public responses, and I got some more private responses. And this is what the mamas would like to hear. They would like to hear that it's not their fault. Sorry. They would like to know that they're not alone, and that they are still themselves under all of the nasty feelings, and that you love them no matter what. They would like to hear that you are sorry that they are struggling. They would like you to worry less about their babies and more about them, because they're already worrying about their babies enough for everybody. They would like the first thing out of your mouth not to be, are you thinking of harming the baby? But is there anything I can do to help you? And the big one that I think is really easy is they would like you to be specific in the ways that you offer to help. So instead of saying, I'll be here if you need me, it's, I'm at the grocery store and I am giving you peanut butter and milk. What else can I bring over? It's, I get off work at 3 o'clock. I'm coming over. Would you rather me help clean the house, take the baby, or go for a walk with you? They want to know that they're not a burden and that you're there for them, and then leave the choice of how they best need help up to them. Because the reality is, no matter how well we mean as a society, we can only do what is best for each individual mother. And the other big thing is they just want to know that you'll be there for them no matter what, even if they're not that perfect image of a mama sitting in a rocking chair holding their babies. Thank you. Yeah.
I have to tell you, I've talked about Vietnam, I've talked about Agent Orange, I've talked about statistics from Vietnam. This is the first time I've ever talked about PTSD, so please bear with me. This is a quote, it's not mine. Excuse me. PTSD isn't about what's wrong with someone, it's about what's happened to someone. PTSD can be caused by different things. I can only talk about PTSD that is caused by war and combat. It affects everyone differently. Hyper-awareness, depression, anger, snap anger, nightmares or terrors, and a lot more. Many of us find it necessary to stand with our back to a wall. A friend of mine quit driving years ago because he recognized that he had a serious problem with road rage. There are usually triggers that set most of these off. Again, different for everyone. When returning from a combat tour, many are addicted to adrenaline. The effects of PTSD and the addiction to adrenaline can be a very bad mix. When arriving home, we just wanted to move on with our lives, and that's no different than any other war. That's World War II, Korea, World War I. You just want to get on with your life. PTSD wasn't even recognized as something when we came home. During World War II, it was called shell shock and other things. Most of us failed to recognize there was a change in us. When it was pointed out to us, sometimes in a not very friendly way, that we had changed and not in a good way, we went into denial. We still wanted to get on with our lives. After living with the effects such as deep depression and realizing your longtime friends aren't friends anymore, when your wife divorces you, and you can understand why a couple of decades later, it becomes harder and harder to deny there is a problem that needs to be dealt with. Counseling and talking with others with similar backgrounds and similar lives because of their backgrounds helped. Kind of let you know you're not out there by yourself. It was very helpful to know that I wasn't out there by myself. I just wish the recognition and help had come a few decades earlier. Working with and helping veterans is something I have found that helps me a lot and probably therapeutic. Many went to Vietnam. Many that came home actually never left Vietnam. I'd like to leave you with a couple of things too. I think this is a low number, but it's a recognized number by the government. There are 22 veterans per day committing suicide. Also, I have a shirt that said a lot. I tried to find it so that I could bring it, but I'll try and describe it to you. It's just a picture of a guy in uniform. Instead of his head, it's a hand grenade. And he's got his arm up with his fingers in the ring. And the caption is, "I'm sure glad you came home without any problems. I'm glad you weren't hurt." That's all.
So I kind of want to start with a bold prediction, so please bear with me. If, in my experience, the people that I have met who are mostly absolutely 100% certain of just about anything besides mathematics, with some humility, usually accept some personal delusion, to some degree. This is a common experience in human life. We learn to trust ourselves so wholly. The way that I see it is that I choose to forget how many times I screw up IKEA furniture on every step. I swear I do. But I always remember that it gets built. And so I choose to forget, or I choose to remember that I can build flawless IKEA furniture. The difference that I experienced with mental illness was the extremity of my conviction. The idea that I could only believe myself. I didn't trust anybody else. I was the only voice. I had others that I could listen to. So I had auditory hallucinations for 16 months without treatment. It started in December 2010 with very threatening and extreme fear and paranoia. The best way that I can describe it, that some may relate to, is that really creepy feeling after you walk down a hallway and you look back and there's nothing there, but you're still afraid of the dark when you're staring at it. Except that doesn't go away, and it's just ever present, and you are afraid and you're in survival mode. And with personal imagination and storytelling that you start to create and fantasize, you start to remember all the technological capabilities that you saw in spy movies, and you think of all the things that you walk away with from movies and you say, I think they're doing that. They can probably do that. They're doing it to me. And so you start to develop more paranoia about those people that are coming after you, or the fear that you developed by the threats that you were experiencing. And slowly you start to recognize that the whole world is about you. Every time you sit in a bar and there's probably 30 people in there, every conversation seems to be revolving around you, and you're worried about what they're judging, what they know about you, what they're saying about you, and egocentrism is a perfectly natural experience in human life. It helps us feel important, and we all feel like we're the star role in our own movie, and that makes sense. But it's more extreme. It's more of the idea that everything is about me. And so I ended up in a safe place. I went back to my hometown, and I tried desperately to blend in and fit in as best that I could, having already convinced myself that I was different, that I was being followed, that I was not fitting in, and people knew about it. And I definitely internalized the stigma and was afraid of the idea of seeking help or admitting that there was a problem. And it was hard. There was a lot to it as far as what stigma meant in the way that I addressed my own issues. And what helped was when I started to come around a little bit. It was 16 months, so it took a long time, and I processed a lot of the threats into more acceptable behavior as far as what was happening here. It helped to sit with people and to recognize that they weren't responding in the same way that I was to different visual or different auditory conduct and behaviors. And so what helped me was that I needed a little seed of doubt to be placed in my consciousness so that I remembered that I'm not the only one that is telling my story, and I'm not the only one that is experiencing the world around me. I'm experiencing a world in me, but not around me. So I took a step into, I kept my feet in reality and my head in delusion. And the problem was that I had internalized the stigma, and so I found out that once I did seek help, that because I wasn't violent, I wasn't going to be, that there was life after diagnosis, that there was life after the idea of admitting and coming out with the idea of having a mental health condition. And for me, it's important to recognize that that there was life, and I focused on the way that I wanted to return to my goals of pursuing a bachelor's degree and recognizing the opportunities that I can give myself, and focus with the help of medicinal treatment. And I went through a cognitive behavior therapy treatment as well that really helped me be less stubborn, listen to other peers, listen to other people who brought me back into our shared reality so that I wasn't lost. And so fear, imagination, egocentrism, and social conformity and stigma are all a part of the human condition. However, most people have that doubt at the end of it, where they return to that balance and they reconsider what they're feeling. It was my conviction and my belief that I was the only one that I would listen to that got me on the wrong path. And remembering that there are people out there that help, that are experiencing it, and that share the world around you and develop relationships with you helps you step back into the game and step into reality in a way that you once had before your break.
So why do some people recover from mental illness and others don't?
Their health.
I don't know. But what I do know is that there was a study conducted across the nation, and they studied individuals living in recovery from a serious mental illness, and they found a common thread that they all held. And the first thing that they found is all the individuals had hope that they could recover. The second thing they found is that the individuals took personal responsibility for their own recovery. That one's key. The next thing they found is that everybody educated themselves around their diagnosis, their symptoms, and really learned different tools and strategies on how to effectively combat those symptoms that they're dealing with. The next thing they discovered is that they all were self-advocates. They were part of their care plan. They were part of, they were really the drivers of their recovery process and worked in partnership with their providers. And the last thing they all had in common is they had peer supporters. They had individuals in their life that loved them unconditionally, that were there for them, and that accepted them for who they are and walked with them on their journey to recovery. I found that out while I was on my road to recovery to be very, very true. When I was first diagnosed with mental illness, I was hospitalized for 2 weeks, refusing medication. I thought, I'm not mentally ill, everybody else is. In fact, when I went to the hospital, I signed myself in. I thought I was signing my brother in, and when they took me back, I thought, what the heck? So I voluntarily went in, but I thought I was signing my brother in. So I thought they had the wrong person. So it took me 2 weeks to get a patient's rights advocate, deny treatment, and then get myself out just to end up back the next day. I was no longer I didn't sign myself in. They couldn't fool me once. Once I was hospitalized the second time, I got a phone call from my grandfather. And I've always been incredibly close with my grandparents. And he said, Andrea, I want you to know that I love you and you're not alone. I've been there and I need you to accept help. And I was absolutely floored. What do you mean you've been there? You haven't been there. You don't know what I'm going through. Everybody in here is nuts. Well, then I found out, along with everybody else in my family, that my grandfather had been institutionalized for a year. He was catatonic, and he received countless BCT. After his institutionalization, he went on to get his PhD in chemistry and was a chemistry professor here at Chico State for over 40 years. Nobody knew about his mental illness. He's from Los Angeles. He came to Chico to get out of the city. He jogged 6 miles a day in your beautiful park, raised 3 beautiful children, 7 grandchildren, was loved by his family and his students. And I thought, if that's what mental illness looks like, I've got this. That was my hope. From that moment, I took personal responsibility for my own recovery, and it was hard. I educated myself in every way that I could. There's a couple books, but I know we don't have time for that. I advocated for myself. I found my voice, and I surrounded myself with individuals that believed in me, that were living their own recovery journey, which gave me so much hope. So what I want to leave you with is just each and every one of you in this room, you can be that pillar of hope for somebody. Thank you.
So we're going to open it up to some questions, and our panel will answer. I think we have some volunteers that will be collecting questions. So if you have a question, I guess you can raise your hand or let some of the volunteers know that you have a question. Yes. Do we have a way to get the some? We'll use this mic. Yeah.
So how are So how we're going to work the questions is you were all given little golf pencils and an index card. Could you please write your question down, and we'll have a couple of Soroptimists come around. If you hold your card up and take your question and provide it to the moderator, she will then speak it so that everybody can hear the question, and then we will have some of our panelists answer that. So just raise up your card if you've got a question. We'll take that from you.
Okay, this is for Noah. Noah, are there different levels of schizophrenia, and can you have it just a little bit?
Well, I guess a medical disclaimer is important. I'm not a doctor. From what I understand and what I went through in therapeutic treatment was that there's variations as far as I have auditory hallucinations, or that's what I experienced. And there's also visual. There's visual and auditory. And then there's also a separation as far as the paranoia delusions, which are more specific to feeling threatened all the time, or extreme fear, I guess I would say. But interestingly enough, the violence and the fear base is very regionally specific. Schizophrenics in the African continent have happy voices, and they hear encouraging things, and so it's regionally different, and they haven't figured out a cultural link, but so it's still the personal experience of a reality not experienced by others, I guess.
Thank you, Noah. This is also for Noah. Do you still take your medication?
Yes, I've been on a medical regimen for the last 6 years since I started treatment. I had because I had experienced such long time without treatment and had changed the way the voices influenced me and scared me, and then just became present. I take it pretty consistently, so the volume's lower, and so I don't disrupt you guys. I mean, it's just a small consideration.
We've had a few questions about what NAMI stands for and how they can get involved, so I'll let Lisa answer that one.
NAMI is the National Alliance for Mental Illness, and in Butte County we have an office right not too far on Manzanita, and we have volunteers that work. So we have volunteers that run the peer-to-peer program, we have volunteers that run the family-to-family class, and the supportive classes too as well. So you can call the office at any time. The website is namibuteco.com. And so you can go there and get the information. We have the newsletters and information for classes. And wait until tomorrow because I haven't updated what you told me to update today. So if you wait until tomorrow, the information will be current.
Andrea, what was your diagnosis and what type of mental illness do you have?
Well, I actually didn't disclose my diagnosis because I don't think the diagnosis is important. I think that really, there's so much stigma around diagnosis, and I feel that people, they make assumptions about you based on your diagnosis. And I think that what's really important is to know that it doesn't matter what your diagnosis is. Most people with mental illness receive multiple diagnoses throughout their recovery journey. And I really am hoping that we can turn the conversation to more of a holistic approach and focus on recovery and symptoms. So I choose not to answer.
Darcy, will you please talk about how you access appropriate mental health care and offer any advice to those experiencing them?
Good luck. No, seriously. So I had a therapist tell me, not my therapist, never, but a therapist tell me a couple of weeks ago that anything under 2 years of being a cranky, irritable mom was totally normal. No. I also, and I mean, I'm not a therapist, but no. And I also, because I didn't go to medical school either, I also had somebody tell me that they could only help me if I was thinking about harming my child. Yeah, I know. So wait, you want me to lie so CPS can come take my kids so I can get help? No, thank you. And then I called at 9 o'clock in the morning crying because I really, really needed somebody to help me get my act together before my kids woke up and wanted more than toast. And they told me that they couldn't help me unless it was a serious issue. And I said, so I don't want to be rude because I know you're just on the phone, but it's 9 o'clock in the morning the second your phone bank's open and I'm crying. I mean, it's serious. So it is really hard to get help. And a lot of it is because the first person that you're going to talk to on the phone is the $10 an hour receptionist. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but they're not the ones who are trained to help the people that are hurting. So if you don't like the first answer you get, just politely ask to talk to somebody else. I mean, and if you're in a really bad mood, maybe don't politely ask. They'll escalate you to the next person. No problem. I think it's serious. Okay, so there is a really good program called Baby Steps. They're amazing. There's Mother Strong back there. They turned off her spotlight because she was eating pizza and they didn't like it. But she's amazing back there, and they can help you get information. There is a really good, strong Facebook support network for people who are stuck through Mother Strong. Because apparently they don't want to meet in public, but we're going to work on that too. And then if you need medical help, there's behavioral health here. I didn't like that one. A guy next to me hit on me, and I wasn't there for that. And so I did end up finding a really good provider up in Paradise. And so my point to all of that is sometimes you have to call 20 people and talk to 40 people. And once you find the person on the other line who's nice, probably stick with that program because that's probably the right fit for your family. So just keep trying, I guess.
It's hard sometimes. Yeah. Butch, how can a spouse help a loved one with PTSD?
Well, I think it goes both ways, but recognizing it, there are things in each of our lives that are different. But, well, for instance, my wife and I walk in a restaurant, and she knows that I'm going to sit at the table that will have a chair back against the wall. If we sit someplace else where that's not possible, she stands back and asks me which chair I want. So I think it's recognition and wanting to be helpful. There are times that a spouse won't put up with it and shouldn't.
Thank you, Butch. Noah or Andrea, how can we help somebody navigate medication if it's working or not working, scary side effects?
So I guess I need a little more information because when you're saying navigate medication, I think that really comes when I talked a little bit about becoming our own self-advocates. I guess what I would encourage is if they need support, maybe you could support them with going and working with their care provider, because there's a lot of different choices and options out there. And so I just want folks to feel empowered to know that their voice counts and matters, and work closely with their care provider. And if they don't like them, fire them and get a new one.
I agree. Darcy, what were the nonverbal signs of postpartum depression? Or what are some of the nonverbal signs that people should look for?
Well, I would say non-verbally it would. So I got my scrapbook from my firstborn today. It took me until this year to order a book from 2005, and the first thing that I noticed is that in all of the pictures, I'm smiling, but my eyes look dead. And I didn't even know that I was suffering at the time. So I think if you just look at someone you love and they look like all of the air got let out of them, and it's 1 in the afternoon and the baby just took a nap, it's probably a safe bet that that's going to be a nonverbal sign. And the worst that can happen if you ask somebody, you seem like you're struggling a little more than you'd like to. Is there anything I can do? The worst they're going to say is no.
Right. Okay, so this next card is not a question, but a comment, and I think speaks to why we're here. Butch, this is going to make me sad. Well, not sad, but cry in a good way. Thank you for letting people know that PTSD has many faces. I have it caused by years of abuse. Thank you. Whoever wrote that, thank you very much. I think it touches me as well, because that's why we're here. To erase the stigma and for people to come out of the darkness, out of the shadows, and get the support that they need. Okay, so let me get myself together here. I have been known to cry with clients sometimes when their stories touch me. I will say that. This is for anybody on the panel. How can I best get help for my loved one who is suffering from an untreated mental illness, who does not want help? They are not a threat to themselves or others. How can I best support my loved one who resists my love because of their paranoia and delusions?
Wow. Yeah. Which one of you? Who wants to field that?
Lisa doesn't mind.
This is probably, it's not going to be probably what you want to hear, but really, you can't. I mean, it has to come from within. And all you can do is love them unconditionally. The best advice my mom was given was to go to a support group herself and see somebody herself, because mental illness affects the entire family. It's not just the individual going through it. But I can tell you that if somebody doesn't want help, you know, there's nothing you can do until they're ready to take that journey and do the work for themselves. You can't do it for them. I'm sorry. I've never seen it work that way.
There you go.
Can I add?
Yeah.
So what I was 16 months on my own, and I definitely pushed people away and isolated myself from friends and family, and it was an opportunity. It took an opportunity for me to remember about the goals that I had before my break, what I was planning to do, what life was projected towards, and try to harken back to some of my core motivations and my core values, and to recognize what was a previous reality and didn't necessarily die, and is something that can reignite, because life has so many different paths and can take so many different turns. But you know, if you keep your eye on a certain goal, and you can work towards it. I graduated with a gentleman who received his bachelor's degree when he was 68, I believe, at CSUMB, and you know, he was an inspiration to me because he didn't suffer from mental illness, but he got back into the groove and remembered his goals and never gave up on the life that he wanted for himself, to be able to prove that. And that was important for me to do for myself, and also for other people to motivate me or try to remind me of that, so that I could get out of my delusion.
Can I add real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing that you can do is, they're absolutely right that nobody can be helped unless they absolutely want it. But there are advocates out there in the community that actually, and other family members or friends, because sometimes it cannot come from the mom or the dad. Because a lot of times the mom or the dad or the grandma, they're like, you know, forget it, I'm gonna go take advantage of you, I'm gonna go eat your food, I'm gonna shit on you at every chance. Sometimes that happens. Let's be real, right? And so what we need to do as a community is we need to get at the core of these individuals, wrap around them, find somebody else that can have that conversation with them, spend that time with them. Because a lot of folks cannot do that within their own environment. So I work out on the street every single day, and I have numerous clients that will say, okay, I'm going to go over to behavioral health, and I'm saying, okay, get in the car, let's go, right? So we make the appointment, we go. A week later, they're off doing something else, they're not going to want to do it. 3 weeks later, oh, Lisa, I really need to do that. So we need to continue to support. It's not just we take them, we support them one time. As a community, we need to wrap around and make sure that supportive services are available to them. And a lot of these folks aren't as, I don't want to use the word privileged, but don't have the means or the mental capacity to get to these places. So look for someone that can take your loved one to those spaces and to stick by them. Because eventually, hopefully they come around, but sometimes it takes many years. Sometimes it's not just 1 year or 2 years. I mean, if you ask my son today, he's doing great, but he'll tell you, I just take my medicine because that's what they want me to do, but there's nothing wrong with me. He's not in tune, as Noah, to say. He says it once in a while, but he's just at that point now, and we've been going through this for almost 8 years. So it has to be on their time frame. Some people are more ready to admit that and to work with it. And so what we have to do is take each person as they come, where they are. Not force our objectives on them and say, hey, you must do this, you must do that. We have to wrap around them, accept them, and then help them through where they need to go.
Thank you, Lisa. BA.
I asked that again.
Oh, you want me to ask that again? Is that what you said? Okay. Butch, what mental health services are provided by the VA?
Actually, I've been very pleased, both for myself and especially a lot of the veterans that we help and try and get them into the system and get them going on something. Here in Chico, there is a Department of Behavioral Health. They had 1 and then 2 psychiatrists and a lot of counselors that are very, very good. The one psychiatrist was transferred out and the other one retired, so last I heard there is none here now. But the counselors here are wonderful, they're really good.
Thank you. I don't know if this is for Darcy or maybe anybody else that can answer this question. If a baby was raised on cookies and ice cream because they would not eat anything else, would this cause some of the mentioned symptoms?
No.
I
mean, no, they'll have like a double chin and diabetes, but and I mean, sure, like not eating healthy causes your brain to not grow a whole lot, but there's fat and protein and all of that, so probably no, they're just going to be heavy. I mean, because it's a hormone thing. It's not a if I had a fitter pregnancy or if I eaten better foods, my brain wouldn't have said, hey, by the way, we're going to take a small vacation. It's just like a crappy lottery ticket nobody wants to win.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
Lisa and any others, tell us about struggles with institutions such as jails, the police, lack of mental health support.
I don't know if I agree she does.
My aunt's laughing because I think she thinks I'm going to be a shit disturber, and I really am right now. If you want to know the truth about institutions, you know, Butte County Jail is not an institution for mentally ill, but a great percentage of them are there. And the problem is that they're not equipped. It shouldn't be their job. It is not the police's job. It is not the correctional facility's job. It is not their job. And we blame them all the time. And I could blame them. They horrifically damaged my child in 14 and a half months in there. Okay? They don't have the proper medical care there. They don't have the proper psychiatrics. We need to get after people like California Forensic Medical Group that takes over our mental health for all of our prisons and jails in the state of California. For institutionalized, you know, the thing is that when your loved one is committed because they are incompetent to stand trial or to do something like that, and they're in the hospital, but then they also have the right to say, my mom can't know what's going on with me. There's laws that need to be changed, right? We need to be able to advocate for our family members. We need to be able to work with our family members. My son was not treated poorly at the state hospital. He was not treated poorly in a mental health hospital in the Bay Area. He wasn't. But he also has a mom who's a bitch, and she stands out there and will advocate, and no one will stand to do anything. So anybody who says that any one of my clients, and they aren't getting the proper care, you better know I'm going to raise my voice. And you better know that I'm going to do it in public. And you better know that I'm going to do it in the paper. And you're going to know that I'm going to try and do it nicely, right? But that's not always the case. Our people who are suffering any form of mental illness are not getting the proper care that they need right now. I'm sorry, they're not. We had a kid, one I loved greatly, took him to crisis 4 times. 4 times. He didn't get a 5150 until the 4th time. And then the person on the other end decided he was coherent. Now, I hadn't had a coherent conversation with this child in 3 or 4 weeks. Now what happened? He comes back to the house and he attacks someone. Where is he now? Unhomed. We are letting our people down. This is a 27-year-old male. There are so many people out on the street right now that they tell you they need to commit a crime and call the police, and that's the only way they're going to get help. Well, you know what? Is that fair to our police department? Now, I can bitch all day long about the police department, okay? Don't get me wrong. But is that fair for our guys in blue who are out there trying to save our lives and get to a place where they need to get to deal with someone's crying attack or mental health breakdown? Is that fair to them? No, it is not. That's not their job. It's our job as a community to revolutionize the way we're doing social services, to be out there every day to help and protect these folks, to take the calls no matter what time of the day or the night, and that doesn't mean between 8 and 6, because I guarantee you that most mental health crises are happening after 6 p.m., right? It's something we all have to work on together as a community. We have to get laws passed that we can help. We have to help people in those situations. And if anybody needs an advocate when their loved one is in an institution or in jail, my number is 510-396-5109. I have flyers back there on the NAMI desk, and I'm happy to give you a card because I will stand right beside you.
Can you repeat your number?
510-396-5109, and I will stand beside you. I promise.
This question is for Andrea. Andrea, is addiction a mental illness?
I don't think so. I would ask you. Can you answer that?
I can't answer that. I teach substance abuse and addiction to future counselors. It is a brain disorder. Addiction is a brain disorder. What happens is the dopamine gets released at higher levels, and so yeah, there is a brain issue involved, similar to mental health or mental illness. It's much more complex than I've just explained, but it was a yes or no question. Noah or anybody else? Noah mentioned that the only person he would listen to was himself. When specifically did that change, and when would you actually listen to others? What happened?
So there's one particular moment that I remember when I was trying to live the most basic of small town lifestyles and fit in as best as I could with the friends that I had, and so I went out to dinner with one of them, and my voices were taunting them, and I was watching, and they weren't reacting, and so I started to notice that I heard it, and so I wondered, and I toyed with the idea and started to think that, oh, well, it kind of makes sense in the way that I've approached the last couple of months, and so they didn't know this, but I used them as my support person, and had them around a lot, and we interacted on almost a daily basis, and so when I recognized a split between my reality and hers as far as the way we interacted, is when I started to consider that I was lying to myself, or that I was experiencing something that was not present in a general shared reality.
I want to have at least one more question because we're running out of time, and then somebody did ask, is a tape of this forum available for us?
Not yet, we're not sure.
Not sure, okay, so not sure. Watch the SI Chico website for updates.
Yeah, or email me.
Or email Natalie Conrad. I do want to mention, somebody wrote, if your loved one struggles with mental health, please join in the NAMI Family Support Group. It meets the first Tuesday of every month. You can pick up a flyer from the NAMI table in the back. Unfortunately, due to time, we're not able to get to all the questions, but I do want to ask this final question. Lisa, can you tell us more about the White Card ID program and the triage program?
The white card was put together with the NAMI organization along with Butte County Sheriff, and it's a card, and people who suffer any form of mental illness, it has your picture on it and your name, your triggers, your primary care physician, and your emergency contact. Oh, Natalie has one in her hand. Your emergency contact information and the supportive agencies on the back, which is Chico PD, Butte County Sheriff, Oroville Sheriff, like that. So what they're good for is, it's not a get out of jail free card, but if you're experiencing a psychosis or anyone's presenting with a psychosis, sometimes the police think that you're using, or you're using some drug or something like that. What it does is it eases the tension, and the police can better help you and serve you, and know that you're not, just high, that you do have these triggers and these things happening. And a lot of the police actually know about the cards because they do give them out if you suffer any form of illness from Butte County Jail. They've been doing it for about 5 years, NAMI office in Butte County Jail.
At this time, I want to welcome back our president, Natalie Conrad, for the closing remarks.
Yes, I encourage everyone who may need a white card to get a white card. There's no qualifications. We do have the white card machine in the back. You could get it tonight, or if you have a loved one that needs a white card, on the first Wednesday of the month, we are at Iverson Center off of Parmack and Rio Lindo. So you could come there from 1:30 to about 3. We're there every month giving white cards out there as well. Thank you, panelists, for doing such a fantastic job. It's been amazing to hear all of their stories and have listened to the answers to these questions that are on our minds. In the back of the room when you came in, you probably visited some of our resource tables, and I just want to acknowledge our resource vendors at this point to thank them for coming as well. We have with us Stonewall Alliance of Chico, NAMI of Butte County, Passages, Access California, Behavioral Health, Chico Police Department, Catalyst, Mother Strong, Enloe, North Valley Talk Line, Butte County Behavioral Health, and Youth for Change. So they're going to hang around a little bit after we're finished here so you can get more information. Also, in the green bag that was provided to you today, there is a newspaper circular with an entire list of resources and phone numbers in there for you to share with your loved ones or to tell your friends and family about.